As Lisa said, we are going to have a very exciting fireside chat with Dax Dasilva, the now CEO, once again, of Lightspeed. But that part is presented in partnership with National Bank. And now I'd like to bring up the Managing Director and Team Lead of the Technology and Innovation Banking Group at National, Daryl Johnston, to introduce the segment.
I'm Daryl Johnston, Managing Director with National Bank's Technology and Innovation Banking Group. We are absolutely delighted to be a repeat sponsor of CIX and a strong supporter of the tech ecosystem for over 25 years. We provide founders, funders, and their companies with full-service, innovative banking through specialized commercial, private, venture capital, and investment banking experts across the country. We recently reaffirmed our continued commitment to growth by acquiring the Silicon Valley Bank Canada loan portfolio, along with the largest group of SVB talent. I'm excited to introduce Dax Dasilva, a business leader, author, philanthropist, environmentalist, conservationist, and the creative mind behind Lightspeed Commerce. Founded in Montreal in 2005, Lightspeed is a fast-growing public company which provides a point-of-sale and payment solution. With teams across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific, Lightspeed powers businesses in over 100 countries globally. After serving as founder and CEO from 2005 to 2022, then Executive Chair for 2 years, within the last 5 weeks, Dax has returned to the CEO role at Lightspeed, and it marks a significant milestone for the company in its next stage of growth. I'm looking very much forward to the next fireside chat as Dax shares his perspective on strategic insights on scaling Lightspeed into a global tech giant, what he's focused on next now that he's returned, and what he predicts for the future of Fintech. With that brief introduction, I'm going to invite Dax and Amber back to the stage.
All right, what a great way to kick things off with Dax Dasilva, now the CEO of Lightspeed. And as you heard from Daryl, he's coming back into the role after stepping aside, which obviously we're going to talk about. But I want to first talk about that decision to step aside because, and you didn't really step aside, but you were no longer in the CEO role. You went public in 2019. Then 2 years later, you decide somebody else is going to be CEO. What happened?
Yeah, so I've been CEO for 17 years, and you have to give opportunities for your team to be able to grow as well. You know, my president had been in that role for over 10 years, and by me moving into the executive chair role, that was an evolution for me. It was an evolution for him, and a lot of other people were able to move up inside the company. And I think what I've learned from my experience at Lightspeed is that there are different stages, there are different moments when different kinds of leadership are required, and I've embraced that. You know, you always have to step out of your comfort zone, do something new. For me, becoming the board chair was a lot of things that I was not unaccustomed to as well. So it let JP grow into that CEO role, let me try my hand at being the executive chair.
I'm just going to make a small change because your mic is on this side. I'm just going to switch chairs so everybody can hear. Sorry, once you're on air, you can't unsee those sort of things. So hopefully now everybody can hear Dax's answers. So that explains kind of why you stepped aside, how you were still involved, but then very suddenly, earlier this year, you came back. What happened?
Yeah, so we had a one Lightspeed strategy, right? During the pandemic, after we IPO'd, we acquired 9 companies in our sector, and so we've had this one Lightspeed strategy where part of the strategy was getting to 2 flagship products built out of those 9 acquisitions, then bringing our customer base over to our payment system, and the last phase of that is profitable growth. which is, continuing to be a high growth company, but becoming more profitable. And we've had 2 quarters of profitable growth, but for this phase, I think it's going to take finding a lot of operational efficiencies across the business. And JP, the board, and I decided, okay, I think Dax is, it's a good time for me to return. And I think coming back into the company, having, stepped aside and done completely different projects. I was the executive chair, and so it was always...
what perspective did that give you?
Yeah, I think the executive chair role is an interesting one for a founder because it's a bit more, you're a bit more involved than a regular chair. As the chairman of the board, you're at an administrative level. You don't get involved with operations. As the exec chair, you can kind of drop into operations. You still stay on all the internal email, the Slack, all of that. So I had a better pulse of the company. But I didn't have a day-to-day, I didn't have a to-do list, and so there wasn't that expectation of me. But yeah, you definitely get a different outside perspective of how the market's perceiving the company, how things are evolving around the company in the ecosystem. And so I think we felt that what had worked for Lightspeed in the past in terms of its growth story and how it's grown in the past through M&A and so on, things have shifted. Companies are being rewarded on the stock market for being a profitable growth story.
Well, I want to pick up on that. Do you think that's fair? Think about how many years Amazon got to be unprofitable as a public company and to where it got it now. I understand you've been doing this for 17 years, but in the public markets, it's still kind of a new face. You are high growth, growing at 20% plus.
Yeah.
Could you be growing at more if you were allowed to lose more money? Could you be innovating more if you were allowed to lose more money?
Certainly, but I also think that the feedback I've gotten from shareholders, because I've spoken to dozens of shareholders in the 5 weeks I've been back, I like the point that they make. One of our top 3 shareholders said to me, I want to see Lightspeed be a real business. It can't be growth at all costs with large losses, just to capture market share forever. When is this company going to have a balance of growth and profitability? And for the first 7 years, when I ran the company bootstrapped, that's how it was. Before we had VCs in the story, and we supercharged everything to grow faster. Right? We were a profitable growth story, and I think it's good discipline. I think it's good for the company to find the operational efficiencies, rationalize cost, and not just pursue growth without considering the operations.
So if I compare your U.S. rival, your competitor would be Toast, would be one example. They're losing money, though they're also narrowing their losses. Does it put you at a competitive disadvantage, you think, if maybe they have greater permission to lose money and pursue greater growth?
I mean, that's always the competitive discussion, and it's a discussion that we even have with shareholders. Like, we may not be growing as fast as a particular competitor in a particular region. They compete with us mostly in the U.S. and hospitality. We're in lots of different areas around the world. But do we want to lose ground, because of this balance that we have to manage between growth and profitability? So I think it is it's certainly a trade-off.
And so, when you think about really focusing on profitability, what is that? Are you just going in and cost cutting? Or are we going to expect maybe changes in how the business operates, the markets you go after, the products that you're offering? What's the vision? What are you back to do?
Right, and there's only so much you can do in the short term. As you said, I can come in and say I'm going to cancel a number of things that can save several $1 million. I've already said that we've canceled the in-person sales summit, which has become a company summit, which now at our size of almost 3,000 people, bringing 1,000 people from all over the world is millions of dollars. So we're doing that virtually. we're changing our work from home policy and reducing some of the days that we provide, food and so on in offices, looking at facilities. Those are things we can do near term, but for the things that we want to do over, let's say, a 3-year horizon, that takes more planning. Like we have legacy from those 9 acquired products. Like there's still cost across the business, but we can't pull all of it out right away. We have to merge. We have to merge customer
Integrate
bases.
them,
yeah, we have to do that work, and so that takes planning because a lot of those, even though they're legacy products, there's still revenue associated with those. So that's something that we're going to have greater detail on at the Capital Markets Day that we're doing in the fall. But it's going to take us till then to figure out what is that plan.
And you've talked about this in the media and other press interviews over the course of the last week. But does that need to take place in the public eye? Do you need to be a public company? There's been this trend over the last year. Companies are more likely to go private than to go public. Do you think that could be a Lightspeed journey?
I mean, it's certainly a popular topic in the news, and that's why we've been asked about it. And our board, when you step into a role like this, everybody wants to talk to you. Whether it's bankers or shareholders or all kinds of folks across the ecosystem, and so it's the board's duty to engage in all of these different strategic opportunities, these discussions. And so from that perspective, that's an open conversation. But my belief is that the public markets are a good place for Lightspeed. That is our focus, is being a profitable growth story. That's what the market's going to reward if we can balance being a high growth company with increasing our margins. And so. And that's where all our energy is. When I talk to shareholders, they want to see 2 things paid attention to. One is the operational efficiency that they see when they benchmark Lightspeed against other peers that were, because of the acquisitions, were heavier. And they also want to see capital allocation looked at. Should we be doing a share buyback? Should we be, how can we capitalize innovation costs? Like all of these very practical issues are things that I think we can tackle effectively as a public company, and if we balance all of it, which I believe we will do, we'll be rewarded.
It's I obviously cover a lot of public companies, and you certainly you talk like a public company CEO, right? You're hitting all the points that investors want to hear, and I wonder that evolution of you.
Yeah.
Dax Dasilva 17 years ago, how did he talk? Because to your point, you've done bootstrap, you've done VC, now public company. Who has Dax Dasilva been at each of those points in Lightspeed?
Well, he certainly knew nothing about finance back at the beginning. I was a coder. I was coding at 13 for an Apple developer. And they were a startup, and actually watching that husband-wife team, build that company, and I was a team that started, building their sort of online manuals and then started coding with them. I had this ambition to build a software company, and so all through my teens and 20s, I built, contracts for software, and then when it came to the point where I'm not building another custom retail system, I'm going to build Lightspeed. That's when at age 28, I started the company, and I was like, okay, this is my moment to do this company I've always dreamed about. But I don't think I ever thought about what it was. I didn't even think about the team or think about having a team.
You were thinking product, customers.
I was thinking about winning a design award from Steve Jobs. That was my only goal. And so I never did, although I did get an email from him once. What did
it say?
We were at the Apple the Macworld conference, and I'm a big Joan Baez fan, and I wrote him an email of what album was playing, before your keynote, and he replied, "Any Day Now" by Joan Baez, and
wow.
It was kind of nice.
That's cool. You should frame it.
Yeah, but yeah, so I didn't really think about what it was going to take to build a bigger company, So I built the software. It was very successful from the very beginning. I had an early team, but I would code for the first 2 years. I would code till 4 in the morning, fueled by French vanilla coffees from Tim Hortons, and then walked down the back stairs to the second floor apartment. I was living on the third floor. Lightspeed's office this is in the Montreal Gay Village, and the team would be there. And as the team started to grow, because we sold tons of software right off the bat, it was a moment when Apple was really coming back. We were a business system on the Mac at first. Now we're all in the cloud, but back then it was all on the Mac. And so because of the lack of software and because of Apple's trajectory, everybody wanted this software. And so the team started to grow, but they really got no direction from me, you know. And so very quickly, well, within the first few years, I had to start to think of myself as a leader, and I didn't really even think about myself in that way. I was an introvert. You know, I was a programmer. I was so obsessed with the design details and winning this design award that I out of necessity had to become this leader, you know, and that began this process of me stepping out of my comfort zone almost every year and reevaluating what is my job now, you know. And what I noticed from startups that over the years we encountered many startups that we partnered with. What I noticed was that founders that didn't do that, founders that remained the main programmer and didn't step out of what they were doing to evolve year after year, those companies tended to disappear.
Yeah.
Because they got limited by the founder getting bogged down in things because they liked doing those things. They didn't want to go into the things that they were scared to do or less familiar, or they didn't make those leaps. And I think it's really important to move into those areas that you've got to lead the company into the next thing that's going to break the company through to the next level. You know, I'm not joking when I said I had no idea about finance when we started talking about the IPO, you know. I have a art history, religious studies background, you know, a little bit of computer science, but I dropped out of that, you know.
Wow.
So it's this evolution that's like really important. Public speaking, you know, we were talking about it backstage. Terrified, you know, and so, and there's different forms of it, right? There's radio, there's TV, there's interviews. It's all different. You know, you can be good at one. It doesn't mean you're good at one of the other formats. You know, all of that takes practice. So nobody should think that people are just born a great leader or born a great communicator.
Vinod Khosla was on the stage here yesterday, and part of the things I took away from him is he actually likes people with no experience in the industry that they're tackling. You know, the fact that you never kind of worked in retail or, you know, in restaurants, but you're developing software for them allows you you're kind of unburdened by knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. So you can, and it seems like you really lived that, right? That, yes, of course, you have to learn about the industry, but not having that as you know, you're in that box allows you to think outside of it.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting perspective. I actually did grow up, you know, before those Apple stores, those Apple dealerships. So I grew up in the Apple dealership sort of world. That's like, those were our initial customers. They're the complex retailers that have complex operations. That's still Lightspeed's target market is retailers with complex inventory and so on. So I did pick up a lot of knowledge from that, but we you know, no background in hospitality, that's for sure. And then as I've gone into other projects like, you know, I had a gallery, a nonprofit at one point, or conservation, or film more recently. It is good to come in with your own set of perspectives and bring something new to the table. But then in those situations, I think you have to approach it with a great degree of humility, and be willing to, you know, contribute what your unique perspective is, but be a real active listener and try to like absorb everything.
How much of this education of Dax Dasilva came from your VC years when you were getting money from VCs that had very high expectations?
I would say that the VC years, so 7 years of bootstrapping, then 7 years of venture capital, and then, you know, I guess we're nearly 7 years of 5 years of public. The 7 years of venture capital were the toughest, you know.
Why?
You have very high expectations put upon you, and it was transformational for Lightspeed. You know, we went from a Mac-based point of sale to when the VCs were done with us, and when we followed all of the threads and succeeded with them, we were cloud retail, cloud hospitality, and cloud e-commerce. You know, so it was and we were very global at the end of it. So it was quite transformational. But that comes at a great cost.
What was that?
You grow teams very quickly. It's some of the more difficult things are, as the CEO, you have to lead the teams through change. That sometimes means that people that were really important, to the evolution of the company can no longer be a part of the team. So those are all tough moments, And when you have these outside expectations, and particularly as a Canadian company, our first investors were from Silicon Valley, Excel. They were investors of Facebook and Dropbox. They have a very different perspective on how to approach the business.
Different how?
They're used to seeing some extremely rapid growth stories, and I think when they make any kind of we weren't necessarily in the VC category with them. We were in the growth category because when they invested, we were already at 10 million in revenue,
Yeah.
and we were profitable. I always ran profitability,
Yes, yeah.
bootstrapped. But yeah, they're the kind of companies that they worked with. They're hoping for that with every company, and so they're going to take you on a very different trajectory,
Right.
And we thought we were breakneck speed before, but it goes to an incredible pace.
Now, having been through that, and there's so many founders in the room that are either going through that or will go through that, what is your advice during those tough moments? Like in retrospect, maybe what did you wish you did differently, or what are you glad that you pushed through because you got to see what was on the other side of that?
Yeah, I mean, one tactical thing that was really important is we had Excel from the Silicon Valley, but we also had Inovia, which was an incredible Canadian investor. It added a lot of balance and perspectives.
What's the difference?
I think that they have they brought different kinds of perspectives, and also different networks, and it did offer a balance. I don't want to say that there's a Canadian way to do VC, but I think there's
a Canadian way to do VC.
Yeah, but it's not less aggressive, and it's not less innovative, but Chris Arsenault gave us so many important insights through that experience. I don't think those same kinds of things, whether it was regarding the team or regarding which kind of additional investors to bring in, I don't know that would have come from the other side, and maybe some of the things that Excel brought us wouldn't have come from Inovia. So it was having that mix that was helpful. And then later, when Excel, after 5 very successful years, they said, okay, we would like to see if we can get a return. Having the Canadian investors bring in other investors helped us get to that next stage, which was be able to go public, because the Excel investors weren't in for that particular ride, and nor should they be expected to be. Not every earlier investor can do that kind of journey with every one of their companies.
You're clearly somebody who's passionate and dedicated, but who also has many interests. You alluded to all the things that you were doing in those 2 years, and your other passions. And I think that's something, and you were telling me this, that we see a lot from the younger generation of startups, that idea of purpose or turning passion into project. What do you see coming up from that generation of entrepreneurs? How is it going to be different, do you think?
Yeah, I think that, and rightfully so, I think that this next generation is really looking for purpose in the things that they do, and the folks that work for them also want meaning and purpose in the companies. And so I have noticed, I'm not very immersed in the startup space, but what I have noticed is there's a lot of startups that are anchored on sustainability or anchored in improving the world by addressing issues in different sectors. And I think that's very important for you to want to get up in the morning, it's and to motivate you from a higher place, and I think that that was important. That's important for the Lightspeed mission. I think we're lucky because we can see the local businesses that are competing against the franchises and the big box. We can see them in our neighborhoods. We can see them when we go to other cities. The businesses running Lightspeed that are getting that competitive edge that's so necessary for them to stay in business. That keeps people motivated because they can see it. It's maybe a bit tougher for a company that has enterprise software to see that. So I think when you're in a position where maybe the mission isn't as visible, I hear a lot from founders like, how can I give back? Because I think throughout my career, whether it was the LGBTQ gallery or whether it was conservation later, it's been an important part of what my life's journey is going to look like. And I think that it's such an important thing that can be integrated.
You feel it can?
Well, that's I think what I've learned is you don't need to quit your day job to do your passion project. Those things can be integrated. They can both bring energy to each other, and they can be integrated in such a beautiful way that becomes your most authentic life. To have both of those things, and if they can be. If there is purpose even in your business, that's even better,
Before I let you go, I'd love to get your thoughts on generative AI, how you think about it. I know your payments and point of sale transaction. I'm not sure if it affects your customers, how you think about what you could offer, or you're talking cost savings. Are you looking at implementing, some of the software that is available to generate those cost savings? Yeah,
that's definitely a big theme as we look at operational efficiencies. We can augment our support efforts, our sales efforts with AI tools that are very high cost workflows. In the product, we're helping retailers and restaurateurs do more with less. But the different processes in the business, whether it's entering product descriptions or figuring out how to do the purchasing for the next season, it's labor intensive and it requires a lot of attention by the business owner who has less and less time because they have to be great online, they have to be great in store or in restaurant. They have so many more factors to be successful. So if AI can help with that process and maybe make suggestions or organize some of those things and do the forecast or do the team planning. There's major labor shortages. How can that be optimized?
Is that something Lightspeed's working on?
Yes. All of those things are part of the solution, but AI can take it to yet another level.
All right. We have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Dax, for your insights and your candor, and thank you so much for your attention. Give it up for Dax Dasilva, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.